All right, we are live 7/1/2024. We were just in Discord, and just to let everyone know, Discord is back in play. We're going to have some moderators there, higher standards of quality control. We're going to avoid the pitfalls that sabotaged the last time that we were on Discord, but it's going to just be another place to bring people in from the live streams who want to engage in chat, live chats in particular. And what I'm going to be doing is opening up live chats before we are live here, like we are now on all cylinders. We're on YouTube, Twitch, DLive, a number of live channels, and then we're also as live audio only. And let me go ahead and open up phones, by the way. So today's July the 1st. The 3rd is the first day of the Dog Days of Summer, which lasts until 8/8, I believe. Dog Days of Summer, which is something we'll probably be discussing because of its significance, not to us, but to the witches and warlocks that run this place. All right, let's see. Join here. Okay, excellent. We got a good group here. Osher, Eric Creech, Armin Ree, Ears Up. Virtual Reality Witness says clouds behind the sun are proof that we live in a supernatural virtual reality. So here's what is fooling you. You are falling for an optical illusion. It's like I described this world stage as a magic show. And if you don't get out of your seat, you're going to fall for every trick because these tricks are designed to fool your senses. These tricks only work if you stay in the seat, look where the magician tells you to look, and accept whatever premise he gives you using sleight of hand and misdirection. So what you need to do before you conclude that the sun is in the clouds is you need to get on an airplane, or you need to make observations from different viewpoints other than on the ground, and maybe even research similar optical illusions. But no, the premise here, or the concept that the sun is in the clouds, is without merit, and it's really just based on an optical illusion. It may look that way, doesn't mean it is that way. I'm surprised people still run with that, but I suppose it does bolster the claim that we live in a
To hear
simulation.
important instructions, press 2.
Okay, phones are now open.
Your show will go.
If you want to call in, the number is going to be on the screen here. It is 563-999-3664. We are now live taking calls on any subject. So let's continue down the comments here. Ollie Goering says, anyone notice alphabet's written script characters have a sort of unified third-dimensional pattern cipher? I wish to know how to show and articulate what I know and see. I find that line of thinking interesting, and I have a number of books on the subject of runes and magical alphabets. And these things are, like alphabets in general, kind of have a common origin. And these letters, these runes, however you want to describe them, in the context of magic or mysticism or shamanic thought, these are energy patterns that we're speaking. Words are things, or thoughts are things, and that words are a way of translating thoughts into reality, which is a very, the magical thinking does imply that there's significance to the letters at that level. Now, I find it all interesting because I think maybe there's something to the idea that there's meaning imbued into things, and maybe it goes beyond just designations and labeling and categorizing ideas, but maybe there is something else. But that's the theory behind runes, is that these aren't merely letters, but these are almost like the source code for reality itself, and that by holding it in your mind and speaking it, you're giving reality to what is really a metaphysical concept, or not necessarily a force, but something that translates energy. So they describe this in the book I'm referencing, describes this plane we're on, or this realm, whatever you want to call it, as having a celestial, terrestrial, and a chthonic stream of energy, and that we are conduits from the energies below, above, and then we're expressing it here in the level of the material. and that an understanding of the significance and meanings of these words and letters and the sounds and the intonations allows one to exert greater power through their own spoken word and their own intentions. And that's kind of the concept of magic in general. It's about the willpower and focusing it, and letters, symbols, these things are all aspects of it. Joined by Thirst for Truth, Tominoid, Lando Rock. Nick Fingar says, I've heard Fed say that joke 100 times. Oh yes, we were in Discord talking about the stolen joke. Maybe I'll get into that. I have the video I uploaded. Should I play it? Demetra 101 is here. Ryler05 says 7-5 head wound. Place your bets, says Tominoid. Yeah, we should start placing bets on these psyops. Is Seattle going to go down next year? What's happening? Someone suggested 7-4 would be an appropriate date. The HBIC, David Hazel, Ted Stryker. Seems I got the alert late. Good to be here. Oh yes, sign up for the newsletter. You'll get the alerts. Sometimes if we're live in Discord, I don't send the alerts right away. Diana South says birds are fake. Yeah, so the birds are fake is a fake conspiracy theory that is believed to be real by the QAnon Queen of Canada, Queen Ramona. And yes, I'll leave that video up. The 42 minutes, is that how long it was? The video we just had, the recording we were in the Discord server, that's going to stay up. I had to take out the last one because somebody said something about the pokey, and you can't talk about the pokey. Okay, I think we're about at the appropriate number of people. So yeah, phones are open, 75 people listening on YouTube. Joined by Upside Down Guy, Jennifer Reeves, KKIN, Celestial Wonders, and Symbia. Okay, good. Phones are open, you can get in queue, and by the way, when you call this number, you can listen on your speakerphone. You can listen until you're the next one whose call I answer. There is a caller queue, that's why I'm using this service. Now, let's get into this first. So I've been having this back and forth with Witsit Gets It, and I managed to goad him into finally making an affirmative statement about his belief in chemtrails. I mean, it's really hard to nail these chemtrail people down. They don't want to say what they believe because it's debunkable, but they still want to believe it. So they're grasping at straws, they're manufacturing things out of whole cloth, things to be, scared of. And by the way, we have a new term. There's a new term that I saw on X, which we're going to go ahead and employ here. They're called cloud shouters. I've been saying chemtrail Gretas, but cloud shouters. So it's a pretty big thing. If you're not on X, you might not know this, but there are many huge accounts that spend all day long taking pictures of the clouds and then getting really mad about it and demanding action. And I'm like, it must be great to not have any real problems in your life. You have nothing in your life going on, no real concerns, so you can get mad at clouds. Okay. Get mad at clouds, but they're madder at people who aren't mad at clouds than they are at the clouds and what might be in them. It's like, okay, you're mad at toxic clouds, but instead of wearing a mask, you're going to harangue people who don't agree with you. So cloud shouters, just a new term. You know who you are. One cloud shouter told me I need to take medication. Oh, you need meds because you don't believe in chemtrails. So I imagine that this person would want to kidnap me, strap me down in a chair, and force feed me pharmaceuticals, psychedelics, just inject me with drugs until I'm in agreement that, yeah, okay, clouds are scary. Like, give me enough PCP and maybe I might share some of these paranoid delusions. I might even run from 5G towers. But yeah, if you think it's going to take drugs to get me to agree with you, maybe you don't have a point. Anyway, I got to Witsit Gets It. So Witsit Gets It finally responded to me in private. Now he speaks to me as though I'm a plurality. He says, haha, I love when you guys pretend to grasp logic. It's legit hilarious. This was not an appeal to ignorance, it was the opposite. I was describing how his claims regarding chemtrails were largely based on an appeal to the authority of government documents and appeals to ignorance. And so here's his response, and it took him a week to think of this. He said, I was refusing to make an unsubstantiated claim because no one in the general public has access to the information required to make any claim of specificity. So this was not an argument. Ha ha ha. Stay in your lane, bud. You failed miserably. Laugh cry emoji. Now, quoting him, he said, quote, "That was me refusing to make a claim because no one in the public has access to the information to make the claim." This is my response here. This is the definition of an argument from ignorance. He is saying that he can't claim that there are chemtrails because the evidence isn't available, but he believes in them, but he can't state it because with specificity, but he can state it in vague terms. And he made a point here. I cannot make any claim of specificity because the information's not there. So I'm thinking, so you're making a general claim, a vague rumor based on nothing but some argument from the authority of government documents. But anyway, as I said, and as I've been maintaining here, that you cannot advance chemtrail nonsense without illogic. You have to lie to be a chemtrail believer. That's just the bottom line. It's kind of sad, but I knew he would fall for it, and he did. Okay, moving on. I want to keep up with your comments here. Okay, let's see. Ryler05 says people should be mad about prices. Yeah. Well, I'm just here to point out hypocrisy among truthers. And if you're going to accuse your opponents in a debate of using certain fallacious reasoning, then you shouldn't be allowed to use it when it's convenient for you. And that's what I see him doing, which is just dishonest. And I also think that if you believe in climate change or chemtrails, I don't think you should ever be on a plane. I don't think you should fly. Like, justify it to me here. I believe that airplanes are destroying the earth, poisoning the crops, blocking out the sun. But I'm going to fly on one because it's convenient. Same goes for the climate change people. Airplanes are killing Gaia. Well, then get off it. Don't drive. Get rid of your iPhone. Like, a lot of these people just are hypocrites, and I can't take their beliefs seriously. Symbia says, crying, laughing emoji, calling you bud, he knows he lost. Well, not only that, but he sent this message to me privately. He couldn't publicly post it. He had to privately tell me that I am wrong, but then he threw out some bogus type of explanation that, well, the reason why I can't specifically tell you why I believe this is real is because the information's not available. So you're making an argument from what? The absence of evidence is evidence of an absence? Is that right? I'm pretty sure it's the other way around. Moving on, though. And we're making progress. And I've said this, I've maintained that this is kind of the point of why I'm doing this. We are making progress, whether or not this conversation is annoying. When we're dealing with Mandela effects, false flag theory, chemtrails, anti-any position, what we're really doing here is we're getting to the root of the issue. And we're exposing people who are gatekeeping or dishonestly maintaining positions that keep people from realizing the full scope of the fakery. You have people who don't know that we're walking through a forest of fake trees. Just once in a while you have some loudmouth pointing out a fake tree and they all gather around it. It's like the whole forest is fake. You got to stop paying attention to these loudmouths who keep you hyper-focused on specific events without plugging it into the big picture. Don't miss the psy-war for the psyop. Don't miss the forest for the trees. So many liars. Here's Concerned Citizens who says Bill Gates is psycho. This guy has 384,000 subs. 384,000. Now, this is why I say that I don't think anything goes viral unless it's allowed to. I would never have 384,000 subs. They wouldn't allow it. I'm already shadow banned from Spaces. But that's because what I'm saying is actually undermining the credibility of the propaganda entertainment complex, whereas this individual, almost 400,000 subs, just posts lies non-stop, but he's getting paid for it. And of course, he's a truther. He's anti-Bill Gates. This is why I don't trust you anti-vax people. You anti-Bill Gates people. I don't trust any of you because you are a part of this mob. This or irrational mob. So this individual here says, I just watched 11 minutes of cut scenes from NASA footage filmed in the Nevada desert from WikiLeaks. So he's spreading this rumor that WikiLeaks, of course, is releasing this footage that shows that NASA faked the moon landings. This is not helpful, even though 90% of the people here believe what he's saying. 90% of them here are agreeing with him, and they're saying, yep, it's all fake, it's being exposed, this is going to shock people. Some of the truthers are like, you know what, this truth is so great that some people, I'll show you these comments. They act like they're going to be there to comfort their family members as they're being brought into this. But anyway, the point of it is, this is from Capricorn 1. This guy blatantly lied. This is not from WikiLeaks. This is clips from the 1977 Capricorn 1. So the point of it is that truthers lie as much as the mainstream. You can't trust any of them. And that's why in Discord, we're really going to be antithetical to truthers. Unbelievable. What's shocking to me, though, is that most of the people here agree with it. They don't even question it. This is what I call auto belief or low information believers. And low information believers aren't bad. They're bad on either side of the political aisle. Just thought I'd correct that. Julian Rum says, it's a good day to remind everyone that Q was right. 7/1/2024, someone's actually saying that. 65,000 views on this. I mean, what is he talking about? Okay, here's just to get a pulse on where things are today. Max Kennerly said, in full compliance with the Supreme Court's ruling, to serve his country, President Biden should drone strike Trump. Bradley Moss says the Supreme Court just gave Biden unequivocal immunity to order the military to take action against Trump today, right now. Dash Dubrovsky says, I encourage Joe Biden to take advantage of his immunity to do whatever, quote, official acts he needs to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. Aaron Rupar says, if Biden declares today that November's election is canceled and order the military to keep him in power, would that be an official act? Now, they're all being facetious. It's kind of a meltdown, but it's just adding to this general theme. And we follow themes here, narratives, threads. Here's another one. Last week, we were looking at Chinese space junk falling into a village in China, and it was on video, and people were running from it. Well, here's another video. It says, Chinese rocket designed to rival SpaceX crashes into a mountain. Accidentally lifted off during a static fire test. After launching into the air, it was seen falling back to the earth and exploding. Chinese space rocket crashes in flames after accidental launch. Now, do you think these are accidents? Or do you think, as I do, that these are burning obelisk rituals, that this is some kind of occult pagan solstice rite? Like, I kind of doubt that these things are real accidents, and I think maybe part of it's just building up the, I guess, dramatic tension. Tianlong is a flying dragon in Chinese mythology, so it's also flying dragon. So you're looking at this burning rocket falling down to the earth. You got the dragon connection. Then we have the Year of the Dragon, and then the Game of Thrones House of the Dragon just came out and has Civil War references in it. And we were talking about the dragon stuff, beginning with Drake, and then the guy who burned himself, and the burning spire in Copenhagen called the Dragon's Tail. So there's a lot of dragon stuff. This is just another example. And maybe it's worth pointing out that Westeros burns, Game of Thrones burns, when the dragons come out and start torching it. And these are red dragons, which I thought might be referencing China. So this is all kind of interesting, more of a build-up. But also, the other point of it is that it's another example of stuff falling from the sky with people watching and running. So we're kind of being acclimated to space junk. Last week, a piece of space junk that fell to Earth on 3/11/2021 finally hit a home in Florida, and they're suing NASA for $80K. North Carolina had scattered bits of a SpaceX rocket all over their farm, so we're having space junk hitting the ground people reacting to it. Now we have multiple videos of people running from space junk, from stuff falling from the sky, rockets falling from the sky. So this is, again, this is just a build-up. All right, we're joined here by Shannon Jones. Thank you for joining. Phones are open, by the way, if anyone has any kind of comments, questions, complaints. Numbers on the screen: 563 999 3664. There were a couple of church lady types who were kind of incensed that there's a 999, which to them is a 666 if you look at it upside down. And so they're probably not going to call. But that's okay. If you're that offended, if scary numbers are that off-putting, you might find some safer content elsewhere, I imagine. Okay, let's move on. I have a ton of notes I want to get through. The joke thing, the stolen joke. Maybe we'll get into that. You know, I don't engage in drama. You know, YouTube was built on drama and beefs and all that, and all this. But the reason why I felt like this was something I should even, bring up in the first place is that it's a matter of principle. Intellectual property, property theft, idea theft, and this is something that we've seen. That's something of a tactic where it seems like there are big channels who farm content from smaller channels and maintain control. This is how limited hangouts work. Like, it may be beyond mere competition, but it may actually get into a strategy to keep certain players out of the conversation. But anyway, I have a video here where I'm showing that we have a bit of a joke theft happening. Let me go ahead and play this. It's just a couple of minutes here, and you can compare it for yourself. The video is called, and I'll put a link to it below. The video is called Owen Benjamin Steals Jake the A-Hole's Tweaker Shelter Joke, where comedian Owen Benjamin seems to have stolen a joke from comedian Jake the A-Hole. I'm going to play Owen's bit first, and then you can be the judge, but the facts are pretty clear.
I'm also going to link all of this to NASA, JPL, all of it, because I love when things come together. Does anyone remember what I called the lunar lander, the original lunar lander? Where is it? I've been saying this for 6 years, and I've seen a lot of truthers pick up on this joke. At least 6 years. What did I call the lunar lander?
Okay, 6 years. His joke, 6 years. What did he call it?
I said it was a meth head's tree fort. Because when you look at that lander, and everybody, even the Nazis, thought that was funny.
Okay, now let's go over to a video from 8 years ago. Not 6, this is 8 years ago.
Come on, guys. So, today I'm gonna bust NASA's balls because I haven't been doing enough of that lately. I've got a little off track. I'll be the first to admit that. And I'm gonna get back to what I do best. And that's busting NASA's stinky balls. So, today we'll focus on one of my favorite contraptions ever constructed in all of American science. It was a $6 billion feat.
The NASA lunar module, this video is called, is a homeless tweaker's shelter.
It was that piece of shit we call the lunar module. In my opinion, the lunar module looks like a fucking homeless tweaker's shelter.
There it is. He coined the meme 8 years ago. And here we have Owen Benjamin attempting to rewrite history.
When I said it. It looks like something put together by someone on a lot of methamphetamines.
So he's trying to steal Jake Gibson's homeless tweaker shelter. All right, so there it is. Now let me read some comments because this is, again, it's on principle, and a lot of people who are comedians make claims that their jokes are stolen, but maybe it's the 100th monkey syndrome. Is that the thing? You tell a monkey a joke, and then other monkeys are able to I don't know, come up with the same joke. I gotta read up on that. I think it's a hoax. I think the 100th monkey syndrome's not real. Okay, here we go. Owen the Shill. Owen Benjamin's been on Joe Rogan. Jungle Jim says, yeah, bigger names regularly prowl smaller comedy venues for fresh material. Super shameful. Swiss Chalet 1958 says, big fan, thanks Tim. X33 says, nice catch. I never understood why people call him a comedian. I thought comedians are supposed to be funny. Shadow Beastie says, nobody calls him a comedian other than his cult fan base and himself. It's a liability shield. So he can slander, defame people who see him for what he is. This is brutal. Brutal. I almost don't want to read some of these comments. It's like that Reddit group. There's a whole anti Owen Reddit community that's crazy. It's anti-fans. And I don't want to give them any air either. It's pretty toxic. But anyway, this is something that I came across because I was reading. I don't really follow him, but I follow the people who follow him. And I'm very curious about what's happening with this entire enterprise, with the whole bear farm and all this stuff. So I tune into his stream, and the first thing I hear is this stolen joke. And I'm like, well, that's weird. Because he's been accused of stealing jokes. And I'm like, there's no way he stole it. But yeah, it's not just that he stole it, but that it's from a small community, so there's very little plausible deniability. And then if you're looking at who told the joke, Jay Gibson actually popularized it on a shirt that he was selling for 2 years before this other person mentioned it. So I don't think it's even plausible that he came up with it in a vacuum. Shadow Beastie says, yesterday, Devin Stack streamed for an hour about Owen and did mention theft of content. There's quite a few examples here. Again, you can read the comments there if you care to. I'm not getting into the middle of that. I'm not part of the Reddit group. I'm watching it from afar. Angst G says, this is par for the course as far as Owen Benjamin's concerned. He lifts about all of his content without attribution. He did this countless times with Matt McKinley, Quantum of Consciousness, Paul Romano, Pockets of the Future, Devin Stack, Blackpilled, and now Jake the A-Hole. There are likely others for sure, like Dave Chappelle he accuses. Fascinating. Donkey Kong BMAC says, I'm still waiting for you and Jake to discuss chemtrails. I watched you and Jake the most since 2022, and I think you flipped me on that one. Yeah, I may have flipped a few people on the chemtrail thing, and if you have flipped on it, all I can say is good for you, I guess. Congratulations, because a lot of people have a hard time even contemplating they might be wrong. And it's okay to investigate alternative views without accepting them. It's a sign of an educated mind. So I just ask that people listen to my perspective on the Mandela effect, on chemtrails, on fake news, and assess the facts that I'm pointing out before prejudging it because it doesn't comport with what you've already thought. It's okay to be wrong. In fact, I would love to be wrong. Somebody please prove me wrong on anything that I say. Please. I would love the opportunity to reverse engineer my mistake and determine how I got there. So if you can prove me wrong on anything I've asserted, show me a good picture of the globe, show me something with one of these terror attacks that makes me think that maybe it's not totally fake and a sim, and I'll deal with it. Okay, moving on. Yeah, that was Jake Gibson, absolutely hilarious, the salty siren. Yeah, his takes are pretty comical and ruthless when it comes to NASA. Although he's moved into sports and has done a lot of good work on that. Now, he doesn't listen to the IPS anymore, and it's doubtful he's going to find out that one of his jokes was stolen. And he doesn't listen to me over a difference of opinion. Well, not just that. It's not just that I don't accept chemtrails, but it's that I said that I won't take you seriously as a chemtrail activist if you don't destroy priceless artwork, glue yourself onto airplanes, and lie in the freeways and block cars the same way that climate activists do. And I was just making the point that you have equivalent positions, equivalent beliefs. One group is taking action, and the other group is just shouting at clouds. You know, cloud shouting is not going to get you anywhere. You don't see climate change people only CO2 shouting. They get in the trenches. They get their hands dirty. And if I believed in chemtrails, if you could prove me wrong, I would be your chemtrail Greta. Like, you wouldn't believe the lengths I will go to take down the entire chemtrail industrial complex. I'll expose who's doing it, what's in it. We'll have a class action lawsuit for anybody afflicted with chemtrail lung. Richie from Boston would probably be one of them. You can tell, you can hear it in their voice. The real gravelly voiced conspiracy theorists have just huffed a lot of chemtrails. And that's the price you pay trying to tell the truth. You got to be out there. You got to be breathing it in. You're the front lines. Ted Stryker says, I had no idea Jake boycotted the IPS. He's decent but kind of annoying at times. Well, I don't think he knew that I was joking. I was actually joking. I was being facetious. Like, I don't really think that chemtrail boofers need to commit felonies to make a point. And I don't think you'd get away with it. But the chemtrail people are just notoriously inactive and apathetic. And I'm like, well, what's in the clouds? What is in the trails? Is it something that makes you apathetic? Because you're the least active people. Meanwhile, you're claiming that you're being victimized. But he didn't stick around long enough to hear me explain that I was only joking. Although I wasn't joking about the points I was making. And maybe that's the problem. A lot of people are mad when you tell them the good news. Imagine getting mad at good news. Like when you're a kid, you find out, oh, there's no monster under the bed. Like, that's good news. And I'm like, there are no chemtrails, and 5G towers are safe. And they want to fight over it. Okay, let's continue here. Moving on. Tons of notes. I'm not going to follow up on this stolen joke thing unless I get some kind of response from one of the two involved. Maybe it'll fizzle into nothing. Maybe it's not even something to beef about. Maybe they're both feds and they get their jokes from the same folders. They pass out memes. I know they do. You go into a Discord server and you have all these memes coming from these people who all came from Telegram. And it's like, okay, you all have the same handlers. Or you're all being fed the same collection of memes from the same source at some point. Propaganda mules. Most truthers are propaganda mules. Okay, Alex Jones says, Deep State may assassinate Biden and Kamala Harris and blame Republicans in a massive false flag. Again, false flags don't happen. Anybody who says false flag is a lying shill, or they're just completely ignorant. And who are you going to follow? Someone who's completely ignorant or a liar? How about don't follow either of them? If somebody says false flag, you just can't trust them. Trust me. Anyway, it wouldn't be a false flag. It would be a hoax. It would be a simulation. It would be a psychological operation. But let's listen to this.
Unless they get Biden to agree to step down, they're going to have a hard time replacing him. And that creates the greater risk we talked about last week, that there is a way. How do you build big narrative? Like, you look at the objectives. They need to replace Biden. They need a narrative that sells their replacement as a popular, likable replacement being done in a democratic process that doesn't lead to allegations of corruption and the rest. Well, the only way to really do, and they need to remove Kamala Harris at the same time. A false flag event that takes both of them out literally would be the thing I would be most concerned about.
So that's what they're concerned about. It's the scariest, worst case scenario. So let's focus on that for the next few hours. Dear elite apocalyptic teeth gnashers, the end of the world is just a matter of where you stand. This is posted in Discord by IFEPA73. This is an article from the New York Post, but the artwork, the cover art on this article is what really stood out to me. See if I can find the full picture of it. It has Trump standing in front of an atom bomb. Trump is a dictator who aims to smash the constitutional government of the United States immediately after he moves the White House to Mar-a-Lago and appoints reality TV characters to the cabinet. Anyway, this is an article just kind of exaggerating this because there is a lot of doomsaying right now. SCOTUS is melting down because Trump has a get out of jail free card. Then you have Biden here, who has come out suggesting that Trump is now, I think he's a king, is kind of what they're saying. And by the way, Biden came out with orange face paint, like Trump orange. What does that mean?
Most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that tests your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency. This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America.
There are no kings. Well, there is now. And yeah, he is wearing orange face paint.
Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law.
I don't know what that means, but I'm pretty sure it's some kind of calm. Have the QAnoners jumped on that one yet? International Space Station on X has a video of Hurricane Beryl, Category 4 storm, 130 miles per hour, as seen from the ISS. I just want to make a point here, because people take stuff in by osmosis. It's just they just take it for granted. It's on TV. It's real. And so people look at this and they say, "Oh my God, look at that hurricane." This is a fake representation. Like there may be a hurricane, sure, but this isn't it. This image they're showing you is fake. If they do show you something from high altitude, it's not from the ISS. Just like the footage you saw of 9/11 from the ISS, totally fake. It's just amazing to me that people actually find this believable. And there are things you will never see when you see video from space like this. You'll never see the astronaut in the same shot from this angle because some of these things are just impossible for them to perform. And we'll get into this. We'll get into the detail on our ISS symposium where we're going to discuss all the different flaws with it. But again, this is just more of the same from NASA, and people just look at it and passively accept it. And I think it's important to point out that no, this is not a real view. It doesn't even look real to me. You know that expression, does something ring true? They say it rings true, like, just it has the ring of truth. If a statement rings true, it seems to be true or genuine. If it rings hollow, it does not. And I kind of get the idea with some of these videos. It's sort of the same thing. It just sort of looks fake. It doesn't have any sort of quality that conveys reality to me. It rings fake, but it's visual. Okay, let's move on. Catching up on my notes. Just again, we got to maintain our objectivity, and that is fake. Now, I posted an image just to see if I could trigger people because I was out this morning and I was sort of on the far other side of town, sort of stranded for a little while, and I was taking a picture of the clouds above me, and I posted it to say it was a scary cloud, to see who would agree with me. And Mike Kim chimed in and he said, "These are scalloped clouds. I grew up near Chicago." So a lot of people, a lot of the cloud shouters aren't familiar with the different cloud formations. So if they see anything that looks like anything that, well, it's kind of strange. It's like, well, what clouds aren't scary to them? They have this cartoonish notion that clouds are supposed to be, it's like oval shaped, kind of poofy things, and the sun is yellow, and the sky is blue, and the sun's got like a smiley face on it. Like they have this childish version in their heads of what the sky should be. So they see these scalloped clouds, and they think HARP, nanobots, 5G, stratospheric aerosol injection, geoengineering, government documents, blah blah blah, and they melt down. And I'm like, okay, these are scallop clouds. What a relief. It's not HARP, stratospheric aerosol, geoengineering injections of nanobots activated by 5G. Because I was worried there for a minute. My heart rate was up. I was having a chemtrail angst. Climate angst is a thing. It's killing people all over the place. Climate angst is diagnosable. 6 tips for coping with climate anxiety. Climate anxiety is overwhelming. Climate anxiety, Harvard Medicine. Are you anxious about climate change? You're not alone. The rise of eco-anxiety. So we can go ahead and call it, people have chemtrail anxiety. And what do these things have in common? Neither of them exist. These are people experiencing anxiety for something that doesn't exist. What do you call that? And I have one of these individuals with the audacity to tell me that I need to take my meds because I don't believe in chemtrails. It's like, I don't know. Projection, I guess. By the way, Terminator 2 Judgment Day will be 33 years old on July the 3rd. This has a great deal of significance. You can connect, in fact, I think they were saying that Trump is going to terminate the Constitution. You can connect the Terminator, James Cameron, 9/11, and the rise of Trump and this whole narrative of the West falling, Judgment Day. It all really does connect to this recurring theme of this head wound. And the Terminator in particular is one of these predictive programming characters that relates to Trump. So this is just kind of an interesting tidbit here, 33 years ago. Especially when you look into James Cameron and his use of that number. His $33 million mansion. He took 33 dives to the sunken Titanic. This is just a reoccurring theme here, but the 33rd anniversary is on the 3rd, and July 3rd is the first day of the dog days of summer. It's also Tom Cruise's birthday, not quite born on the 4th of July. And the number 73 has a great deal of significance anyway. Challenger explodes, 73 seconds. We have many examples of that number, or 1 minute, 13 seconds, so 73 and 113 have a strong correlation. Just more of a build-up here. Okay, moving on. Another video here. Chinese rocket accidentally takes off, crashes into mountain. Its name translates to Heavenly Dragon. Now, I read in one of the articles that this is supposed to compete with Elon Musk's rockets, and I think Musk got a lot of attention with a lot of these explosions, which I think are mostly PR stunts, not to mention obelisk worship. This is a cult that runs the world. Donkey says, when you order a rocket from Temu, pretty funny. I'd suggest that they order their space station from Wish, because it's definitely a step down from the ISS. But yeah, this would be a Temu rocket. 666 United Nations Plaza. Do a search on Google and you'll be staring at Trump World Tower. And this is an interesting one. I kind of looked into this little rabbit trail because of it. This specific tower has been featured in a couple of movies. Another monument worth looking into. I'll probably get back to that. Elon Musk just had a birthday the other day. Deborah on X said, "Happy birthday, Elon. I only have words to thank you for everything you do. I can't imagine the difficulties you must overcome. It must not be easy to be you, but there are many who are supportive and grateful to you." And I believe this is like a birthday, kind of a rock ballad. I'll just play a few seconds of it. Sounds like AI generated music. How can you tell anymore? I sometimes wonder if Grimes is AI generated. And do you remember when Grimes was ranting about how AI will perfect communism, get rid of systemic corruption, and nobody will have to work anymore because forced labor is not a vibe? Yeah, AI music can be embarrassing. That was cringe. But yes, he turned 53 on June 28th. Now, I wasn't only looking for that. There was actually a post here where this is Deborah, FR, who had wished him a happy birthday. But David Icke had responded to Deborah, and he said, "This Elon God worshipping is taking humanity to a very dark place, as all these cult agendas that are rejected when Gates or Schwab demand them are welcomed when Musk delivers them. Wakey, wakey, people. This is soft cell hero worship to a global dystopia. Not a popular opinion, but I don't care, it's the truth, as unfortunately you will all see as this goes on." David Icke has taken on something of a, almost like a crusade. He's taken it on himself to split the alternative media into the alternative media, and which he considers to be, he calls them the MAM, the mainstream alternative media, and then the real alternative, of which he's a part. The issue is, he still believes that they're all there's false flags. He still believes that there are real mass shootings and terror attacks and weapons of mass destruction. He still believes in the satanic sacrifices. He's not a full-blown QAnoner, but his book, Children of the Matrix, had the opening chapter say, "What about the children? Save the children." And he explained how, by name, the Queen of England and George Bush were eating children and shapeshifting into reptilians. So, my point of it is, he has never really been a source of truth. He has always been MSM plus, atrocity propaganda, conspiracy theory, and fear porn. Major chemtrail boofer. In fact, I'll have to get to it, but one of my Twitter followers has been tagging him and suggesting that he debates this chemtrail thing. But he's just a major fear pusher. And I don't think that's very truthful. Okay, moving on. Steve Bannon says, "I'm a political prisoner of Nancy Pelosi and Merrick Garland. And if it took me to go to prison to get the House to move to delegitimize January 6th, then prison is worth it." Again, he's going to prison because he didn't want to respond to the subpoenas to testify for his role in the January 6th rioting. And he was cheerleading it. In fact, he had alluded to having, I think, pretty specific foreknowledge about what the plan was. I don't have much sympathy here, and it's a PR stunt. But let me go ahead and play this clip because he went in today. 4 months.
Reporting to prison on Monday.
I am.
How do you feel about that?
I'm a political prisoner. I feel great about it. It's got to, whatever. And look, I served my nation on that destroyer in my 20s and back at the Pentagon. I'm serving my country right now as a political prisoner in Danbury starting on Monday. It will not change this show. It will not change our impact. It won't change me. It will not suppress my voice. My voice will not be suppressed while I'm there. I'm
not going to believe he goes to jail unless 4 months from now he comes out a lot lighter. I'm not trying to, body fat shame or anything, but I read somewhere that in jail you get like 2,000 calories a day or something ridiculous like that. So if he's not substantially changed, when he gets out, I'm probably not going to believe it. Okay, it says most prisoners get more than 2,000 a day because they buy commissary. Oh, I see. We're going to be able to put money in his commissary account and keep him stocked with ho-hos or whatever. All right. Diana South says Steve is smiling and bringing his own case of soap. Yeah, he's happy. This is credibility. This is street cred. Robin C. Williamson says Ike also believes we went to the moon. Secret trips as well. Now, Ike wrote some good books. I like Tales from the Time Loop. But there's a point where we have to evolve. Or we have to... when you're applying a scientific methodology, you're really trying to debunk your own theories. And if you fall in love with your own conclusions, you might have prematurely accepted something that's not complete, which limits your growth in any particular field of endeavor. And I happen to think that a lot of the alternative media types are stuck in 2010, stuck in 2002, stuck in 2020. I see a lot of that. But I'm like, you know what? You can go ahead and come into the 21st century. I think if you're capable of it, of recognizing that all your past work is wrong, you can correct it. But it's difficult for people to do. They paint themselves into a corner. I mean, everything that I thought about the world up until 2012, 2013 was through the MSM frame of reference, and I was obviously wrong about a lot, and I had to reassess it. I wasn't fighting the fact that I might be wrong about something, and a lot of people do have a hard time admitting when they're wrong. Mandela effect syndrome is really just another way of saying there's no way I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, it's because the whole world and universe changed. No way I misspelled that word. The dictionary's changed. That's kind of what we're seeing here. It's solipsism, I guess. Magical thinking. But it's limiting. You have to recognize that we are imperfect when it comes to our perceptions. Doesn't matter how smart you are, or even how aware you are of how trickery things are, you can still be duped. And that's one of the questions I ask in Auto Hoaxology 101. Are you dupable? If your answer isn't yes, then you've got a major blind spot, because you have to be looking for these areas where you are actively being duped. And it's not hard to see. Elephant Tusk says we need an IPS commissary. I do want to produce an IPS energy drink. I think that would be worthwhile. I had this concept for one called adrenochrome shots, which would be like 5-hour energy with a different label, basically. All right, let's continue on here. This is going to be really bad. Well, good bad. The coming few weeks. Bannon in jail, and then Trump is at this moment trying to overturn his convictions. Interesting times. Okay, moving on. I got a comment from Lack8609 who says, if you don't believe in direct energy weapons or weapons of mass destruction, what do you think happened in Lahaina? It's a valid question. Mainstream believes that climate change exacerbated existing conditions and seasonal fires and caused these extreme fires that melted all the cars and vaporized all the children. Truthers believe it was done by Chinese space lasers, and the QAnoners think something else I don't even want to get into. But for the most part, the consensus here is that the fires in Lahaina were unlike anything the world has ever seen before, and it must therefore be direct energy weapons or climate chaos. My perspective on it is that nothing happened. It was a closed movie set. There may have been some kind of controlled burn, but only in a limited area, while this other area was set up and staged. I think they faked it. I think a lot of those burnt up cars were CGI or prop cars. The 1,500 kids that were vaporized by the space lasers didn't actually exist. That turns out to be a lie. There were a lot of liars and crisis actors, which was interesting. You had these people who would pull over in their cars and they would say, 1,500 kids just got vaporized and nobody's talking about it. It's like, well, where are their parents? Their parents aren't complaining, so who are these strangers complaining about kids they don't know? And there were all kinds of truthers telling me, well, what about the kids in Lahaina? And I'm like, you got to remember, as a general rule of thumb, fake dead people's lives don't matter. Bottom line. Well, it turns out that there were 1,500 kids that were sent home from school, didn't go back the next day because school wasn't there, and this is misinterpreted by somebody as they've all been vaporized and nobody cares. So they were out there pining for these dead kids, and then some said, no, the kids went into tunnels, and then they were trafficked. They were sex trafficked to the adrenochrome monsters. All kinds of stories. But anyway, Occam's razor says the explanation that requires the fewest numbers of, or the fewest leaps of faith. The fewest, I guess, would be nothing at all. A psyop as usual. And something else too. The mayor, not the mayor, the police chief is the same police chief who oversaw the Vegas psyop in 2017. So you have another key player in a major psyop mass casualty event, the biggest mass shooting in American history. Same police chief, and this is like one of the worst fires or something. Fake, fake, fake. So that's my answer. It's fake. Nobody died, nobody cried. Nobody died, nobody cried. And some people still have a problem with that. They'll say some people cried. No, 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 no. This is definitely the case that we can make the statement that nobody died, nobody cried. And if you're going to assert otherwise, you have to provide that burden of proof. Okay, let's continue here. Mango says they have several flavors that are good, just not as. Are you talking about Mountain Dew? Mountain Dew, Maui Blast, Mountain Dew, Star Spangled Splash, Mountain Dew, Liberty Chill. All of these have predictive programming. Pitch Black. Okay, we have phones open for another half hour. I suppose if someone wants to call in, a number is on the screen. I have another comment I want to get to here. Symbia says the ISS is next. Oh yeah, here it is. Celestial Wonders. Tim, you predicted space junk years ago. Yes, the space junk thing was this. I recognized that they were introducing this concept, something that no one had any experience with. They were introducing it here and there, and I started to see what they're doing is they're planting seeds. Then the movie started backing it up. Every other movie on Netflix had space arcs, space stations falling from the sky, space stuff falling, moonfall, space junk falling from the sky. And Moonfall is directed by Roland Emmerich, who did ID4, which provided the visuals for people to experience 9/11 fully. Because you're not just watching 9/11 in a vacuum. You had decades of predictive programming. So they give you predictive programming to give you visuals for what you're not going to see so you can imagine it. And they play upon your imagination. And so we have been trained and we've been conditioned to accept space junk as a thing. And now they've made it real, just like that. Now this superstition's a hyperstition, now it's real. Now if I call the news and I say a piece of space junk hit my car and I show them some random piece of metal, it's probably going to get a pass. They will say, yeah, okay, space junk's a thing. You can sue NASA for mental anguish if space junk hits your house. Okay, moving on. Unicorns riding on chemtrails using handheld space lasers, says Diana South. Right, Ryler05 says, what about the Lahaina people at the city council meetings? Crisis actors, for the most part. I have no reason to think that anything out of the ordinary happened. Everything suggests this was a controlled movie set. And again, the same guy from Vegas. And if you're still believing in Vegas, there's no help for you. Unless you're willing to do your own research above and beyond what is spoon-fed to you from alternative media. And the mainstream version's bunk, but the alternative media is also bunk. The fact of it is 13 months after Vegas, most of the people who were there did another psyop in Thousand Oaks. Like 50 of the same people. I mean, recycling crisis actors at that level. 50 people. No way this is real. Copaesthetic says, new Summer Riot movie trailer just dropped. Let's take a look at this. Now, I want to point out, too, because we're living through a early hurricane season, uncharacteristically early, and the movie Twister is coming out. And tornadoes have been hyped up recently, and I saw this trailer for Twister on the Civil War movie. So this new Twister is going to come out in a couple of weeks. disaster movie. And of course, the reason why they're putting this out there, it says Twister's eyeing a $50 million opening on July 19th. So this is going to be huge. And the only reason they're doing this is to hype up climate change. These movies are propaganda first. Entertainment is a side effect. Okay, Lionsgate Movies. What is it called? Oh, this is Ray Liotta's last film. Okay, I thought I watched his last film. I didn't know he had more. Excellent actor. I really liked his work. Got Tyrese Gibson, Scott Eastwood, and Ray Liotta. And when did he pass? It wasn't that long ago. Anyway, we'll move on and play this trailer.
Get a pack of Phillies. You speak English, bitch?
Watch your mouth.
The fuck you say?
Now, is this a movie or is this just Twitter? I mean, I'm constantly seeing riots and stuff on Twitter. It's getting worse. And they can create the impression that something relatively rare is commonplace. Subway violence, train derailments, Boeing airplanes falling apart. And Boeing has now become an epithet for disaster waiting to happen. In fact, the two astronauts are still stranded on the ISS, but NASA says they're not stranded, but they're stranded.
How the fuck that feel?
Familiar.
This is my home.
Death Row Pictures. Okay.
The jury in the Rodney King trial. A stunning verdict. The 4 police officers.
Oh, the Rodney King trial. Okay, this is going to be good for a few reasons. The Rodney King beating was brought back to life with the death of Terry Nichols. And this was at the beginning of 2023. And this Terry Nichols beating not only looked like the Rodney King beating, is filmed the same way. It was fake from start to finish. There's a group of like ununiformed police who did the beating. They were called the Scorpions or something silly like that. But the Tyree Nichols event, or the death, the beating death, resulted in protests that shut down I-55. And then I noticed this is the 55th year since the MLK assassination, and it stood out to me because King kept popping up. Tyree Nichols, his protest attended by Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter, who then goes to the eulogy where Reverend Al Sharpton delivers a eulogy at Mason Temple, where Martin Luther King Jr. gave his final speech before his 4/4 assassination. Well, on 4/4, which is April 4th, Donald Trump was arraigned. You know, he was being arrested on the 55th anniversary of MLK's death. But 55 years, I-55 was shut down with these protests. And I was noting all these reoccurring themes, though, and bringing back Rodney King and the phrase King, highly significant. Without getting too deep into all of this, I just want to point out this is very significant that this movie came out because you had the actor Jamie Foxx die at 55 and come back to life on a movie set. And they talked about his resurrection, and then they said, oh, he's been cloned. Then they cloned Tyrone comes out that summer, starring Jamie Foxx. Now this is significant. The name Tyrone, they cloned Tyrone, Tyree Nichols, and it ties into Trayvon Martin, because Trayvon Martin is the death, the death of Trayvon Martin was the instance of martyrdom that kicked off BLM. But one of the main celebrities that popularized it at that time was Jamie Foxx. So the recurring theme here has to do with this martyr cult of BLM and these ritualistic deaths. The Rodney King beating being ritualistic. I mean, Rodney King was hit 33 times, 1 minute, 19 seconds. And we've looked at the symbolism around that event. But I'm also finding this highly interesting because of a recent admission by James Cameron that the Rodney King footage got out largely because of him, which makes me think that he may have been the director of those riots, of that entire psyop. There was a man named Holiday who was recording James Cameron recording Terminator 2, Judgment Day. And Judgment Day's anniversary, 33rd anniversary, is in 2 days. So T2 Judgment Day is being filmed, and this bystander, last name Holiday, is recording it on his camera. While walking home, he catches the Rodney King beating on the same shot, on the same film. So the connection here is that the riots were triggered by the video recorded by the guy who was recording James Cameron, making a movie about an evil cop. The Terminator 2, the main villain, was this cop who became a villain. And that was kind of one of the themes that he wanted to emphasize. This reversal of roles, the moral high ground going to the victim, like with George Floyd, with Rodney King. So it's all very interconnected, as we've been describing. So for this Rodney King story to emerge again, which is all about outrage and reminding people, so the people who didn't live through it are just going to assume it happened. And now their concept of it is going to be from a movie. Whenever they do a movie about a psyop, paradoxically, it becomes realer, more impactful.
Rodney King trial. A stunning verdict. The 4 police officers were found not guilty.
Watching the news?
Okay, this is going to be good. They'll make this fake event real and reignite a lot of the ire, the hate, and the back and forth. This is how they make stuff happen. This is Psywar, agitprop is what you would call this. But now the connection here is this, though. The central character in the Masonic allegory, in their rituals, they kill and resurrect this person, this individual, the architect of King Solomon's temple, Hiram Abiff. And there's this fascinating reoccurring theme with a lot of these deaths. And a lot of it has to do with the names. And of course, Hiram Abiff is from Tyre. In Masonic drama, Hiram, king of Tyre, which is distinguished from Hiram Abiff, but the Tyre, you had Tyree Nichols. They cloned Tyrone. Trayvon Martin, Trey. There's this common theme, and when you look at all the components, the 33 times the guy named King is hit, it's consistent across the board. And we'll go into the nuance and the details and the scripting here when this movie comes out. I'll go back and look at Tyree Nichols in the context of bringing back the Rodney King atrocity, which is what they were doing. They basically recreated it. Elephant Tusk says, have we ever looked back at retro auto hoaxes prior to 9/11 and found 33 and 42 references? Interesting question. I do have a mind map, and I found instances like, for example, SOS, emergency, like 9/11, emergency. 9/11 was instituted in 1968, same year the Twin Towers construction began. But SOS became an international distress signal, and it was first implemented on 11/3, 1906. But 11/3 being associated with an international disaster. In 11/3, 3/11, One World Trade Tower opens 11/3. There's some indications of consistency all the way back, and this is why we bring up the Masonic cult and their symbolism, because it figures so prominently in all of these various hoaxes. Lean Dion says Death Row was Tupac's label, and his death has been in the news lately. That's right. Wasn't his killer about to be... Yeah, Tupac's killer, and as Garrow told me this from Jurassic Liars, that his killer is going to be bailed out, and there's a couple of things about it. Keefe D. And that if he gets bailed out, he's probably going to get killed. That's what was being said by JL. But what's Keefe D's real name? I believe he said there was something about the guy's name that had a connection to Donald Trump. Oh, yeah, that's right. Dwayne Davis, gangster. I'll see if I can find that connection that was being pointed out to me. Oh, that's right. He was born on June 14th. So the connection is this. The guy who kills Tupac, and again, Tupac and JL broke down the symbolism of his name. There's quite a lot there. But that the person who killed him being released, being killed would be a significant connection if that's what happens. And it's because he has the Trump birthday of 614. And this Trump birthday thing is incredible. Who was that comedian? The comedian who fell and hit her head, and she said something like, "I'm vaxxed and Jesus loves me the most." Her name was Heather McDonald. Head injury. Well, the name, Donald. Head injury. Reoccurring theme. And Heather McDonald's birth date happens to be 614. And there's a whole slew of these incidents that suggest predictive programming, making associations for what's to come. This Trump head wound thing is one of the most predicted psyops that we've ever examined. Next to the Seattle thing, which again, I'm not 100% on Seattle being nuked, being Oppenheimered. 2020 could have been the Seattle event, but I have my fingers crossed. It's not doom hope, because I don't believe it represents doom. But I do find these plot twists to be interesting, useful, and educational. Conspirataining. Ryler05 says Trayvon never existed. Yeah, there are some indications that he is his brother, and that's what they do. They take younger pictures of themselves and Photoshop them. That whole event was just ugly top to bottom. George Zimmerman, who and this is when I really started to see how the manipulation of media was bad on both sides. You had like CBS and NBC, they were darkening pictures of Zimmerman, and then they changed him from being Hispanic to being white because they wanted to reframe it. So I was like, wow, they're just bending the news to suit these agendas. And then some other stuff happened with George Zimmerman. I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and he was describing Zimmerman as cherubic because he had gained some weight. And I was like, why is Limbaugh softening this guy's image like he's this harmless angel, a fat little cherub? It's like, no, he was a wannabe cop. But I was just noticing that on the right they made him a hero. George Zimmerman painted an American flag, and Sean Hannity bought it for like $1 million. It's just dumb. But then there's this. George Zimmerman rescues a family, helps them out of an overturned SUV. He emerged from hiding to save people from a truck crash. I don't believe this. And I heard this being described on the Limbaugh program. And like, Limbaugh's always hyping this guy up. And this is when I thought, okay, they're doing PR stunts, and they're using people with big platforms to sell these stories. And that was kind of my take on it. That it never really happened. So no, I wouldn't be surprised. Trayvon probably did not exist. Busy56 says, have you seen Talk Radio? It's about a radio DJ who has far-right fans and gets assassinated at the end. No, I have not heard of this. Mirroring Ellen Berg. But it is interesting because, according to Kevin Booth, the producer of Alex Jones and the producer of Bill Hicks, Bill Hicks gave him a script for an Rush Limbaugh-like character who gets shot and killed. And I thought, well, if Bill Hicks is Alex Jones, then that's how he's going to make his exit. Ellen Berg was an American talk radio show host in Denver. He was assassinated by a white supremacist group called The Order. No, I have not heard of this. Is it real? Could be. 9:30 p.m. June 18th, 1984. He was on a death list. Could be fake. I'd like to look at this closer, but look. It says here, director Oliver Stone's 1988 adaptation of a play talk radio drew inspiration from his death. So you have Oliver Stone attached to it. Anytime a meta scripter touches a story, I tend to think it's probably fake. Manufactured. Okay, continuing. Elephant Tusk says the clown factor is ridiculous. Mingo says the world stage is a flat and stale show. I don't think so. If it was flat and stale, we wouldn't be paying attention. I wouldn't be paying attention. I don't watch bad movies. I put down bad books. I wouldn't be paying attention if I wasn't transfixed. We have 62 people listening on Twitter. And if you want to join the chats, go to ips.monster and click one of the platforms listed. We have a few over at DLive, 13 at the backup channel, 68 on the main channel, and about 30 people listening at Radio King and TuneIn. I want to say thanks to everyone for your chats, your comments, your observations, and also I have to point out that we have had unbroken, continuous live streams and activity for months now. And this is solely the result of the supporters of this channel. And it's because we are committed to maintaining the think tank itself. And I think that what we're doing is really ground zero for something that's going to spiral out of our control. Like this will become a larger phenomenon. Our perspective is correct. And it's not something I ever relent on. Like, I never give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to self-gaslight. I'm not going to pretend to know or not know what I know. And I'm not going to examine the news without including what we know as part of my assessment. I am wearing they live glasses. And if you're not looking at the news psyop aware, then you're not wearing those glasses. If you don't know they bend the news, if you don't know that predictive programming is a form of marketing, then you're not wearing the they live lenses. And we're going to continue to do what we're doing, and we're going to expand into the real world via print, which is starting next, the next major thing within the next couple of weeks, the IPS Insider. And following this, we're going to be doing our routine IPS cyber symposiums, where we're going to confront these various subjects, but we need to have an above ground presence, and I want to get people involved in these debates, but serious debates. Debates with a purpose. Debates where bad arguments are scrapped, where some people lose sometimes. But it's not about changing the mind of the person you're debating, but it's about providing the best possible arguments and then examining the integrity of their argumentation. And we're going to do this across the board, targeting various truth or orthodoxies as we create our breakaway civilization, the parallel media. And we have to create these distinctions. We have to draw lines in the sand because the skeptics that the skeptics are outnumbered by the believers. There are more people who believe in mainstream media than believe in conspiracy theory. Obviously, you're already fringe. But then when you go deeper into it, the alternative media and the fringe is so controlled that they've adopted a lot of mainstream compatible beliefs. And to get outside of the mainstream and alternative box, you have to break away with a lot of these beliefs and enter into agnosticism. We're fomenting a culture of disbelief, but it's informed disbelief. We know why we don't believe what we don't believe, as opposed to those who believe whatever they're told to believe, and they have no idea why. They don't know the shape of the solar system. They don't know the size of the earth that they maintain as a ball. It's like, if you're going to assert you believe something, you should be the most informed person on it, but that's not the case. But we want to maintain a quality of methodology and a consistency. We're not going to lower our standards. It's like, yeah, we could have 1 million more people in the parallel media right now if we just open the door to the chemtrail believers. It's like, no, we'll be outnumbered. I'm not going to be outnumbered by cloud shouters. Now, here we are having a rational discourse about the nature of media, mind control, mass manipulation, and you have these other people who want to scream at the clouds and ask questions that have no answers because they're not legitimate questions asked in good faith. Thank you very much, Thirst for Truth. Appreciate the super chats, and that is 100% the reason why we're staying afloat. We used to have interruptions, but not anymore, and I'm able to commit more and more time to this. And I have a lot of plans. This summer is when we're really kicking off the IPS Cyber Symposiums. The first one's going to be in a couple of weeks, but I'm not going to put out any details until we get closer to it. but it's going to be standardized and sustainable. I'm not looking to rent out venues or conference halls, but I have a better approach that I think will be more suited to what we're trying to do here, which is create content, but meaningful content that makes progress in very specific areas. And we have made progress. Remember, we're the ones who debunked the Mandela effect. We're the ones who debunked, or rather, determined the proper explanation for predictive programming and what it really means. We're the ones who really stood on the platform of auto-hoaxing and skepticism against the grain. Because if you're going into the anti-position, if you're recognizing the media as a liar and you just automatically go against it, a lot of the anti-positions are just simply controlled. They don't call things fake. They believe things are real, and they used to really chastise and peer pressure people who call stuff fake. Remember, the term auto-hoaxer was a pejorative. It was an attack. There's something wrong with you. No, it's like, no, you're an auto-believer. There's something wrong with that. You're a low information believer. KKIN says, repeat and curious. Puppetry is a very ancient form of theater which was first recorded in the 5th century in ancient Greece. 5th century BC. Some forms of puppetry may have originated as long as 3,000 years ago. Interesting. I say the term, I say world stage. And I want to be clear here that when I say world stage, I am alluding to the fact that the real world is oftentimes conflated with fiction, where you have, for example, a flash mob, or let's just go with the flash mob idea. You're at a mall and then a bunch of people just start dancing to some at some kind of indicator, like it strikes noon and they all get up and do something. So they plan in advance, they hijack this area temporarily and kind of just become they're able to commandeer this and create a fictional event. And a psyop like the Boston bombing is sort of the same thing, where you have a real marathon, but in the middle of it you have some theater that was pre-planned and a lot of people are synchronized in it, they execute it. And so theater is a huge part of what we call psychological operations, PR stunts, acting. What do you think testimonials are? This is all about getting people to create this version of events in the minds of the people who hear about it. So the world stage is simply how I'm describing the use of theater on the stage of the real world in order to advance their version of history. And it can be completely fake. It can be completely, I call it the theater of Psywar, but nobody really knows because it gets the official approval. It gets the stamp of approval, and it gets to be put through the mainstream and alternative channels. We're looking at like worldview monopolies, but we're all looking at the world through Big Brother's viewfinder. Well, I say we, but it would exclude us. Again, if you're not accounting for perception management, psychological operations, and simulation, when you're looking at everyday news, you're just simply not going to be able to arrive at the right conclusions. I mean, even with space junk, people are like, oh, space junk fell from space. It was dropped on 3/11/2021 and it hit this person's house. Now they're suing. At no point in there are people are general viewers considering, well, this could be fake. The family could be committing fraud. NASA could be lying. No one questions it. It's like they just accept it passively. And that's one other point to make too. Both mainstream and alternative media are types of mediation you take passively. Even the triggered people, the triggered wokesters, triggered truthers, they have passively accepted every premise. There's no active discernment there. There's no active perception of media. It has to be a passive phenomenon. It's a passive experience. You're just immersed in it. That's why they give you 3 days worth of news every 24 hours. They don't want you to have time to actually stop and parse it all. So what we're doing here is we're taking a more active role in perception, which means not watching everything and parsing every single story, but rather suspending judgment and not accepting it all as real unless we're satisfied by the evidence. And that leaves us here in this area of agnosticism with questions. But we're not just asking questions like general truthers do. Like, I don't know what that's going, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a 5G tower is. Is it scary? We're not just asking questions. We're debunking false explanations, which leaves us with question marks. But we're seeking to answer those questions. That's way different than I'm just asking questions. If you're just asking questions and you're not trying to answer them, then what are you? Because that's where Trutherville is. They're the people who are just asking questions, and that's why I think it's important to make a distinction between valid questions and bad faith questions, arguments from ignorance. Just because we have a lot of questions doesn't mean we're arguing from that ignorance. We're acknowledging ignorance. It's actually, there's a word for it. I believe it's called nescience. Where, yeah, here it is. So nescience is not the same as ignorance. Ignorance means, as you all understand, stuff that we're unaware of. And then you have intransigent, almost intentional ignorance, where people don't want to look at the other side, or they're not willing to confront it. But this here really refers to the awareness of things that we can't know right now. So nescience, okay, here you go. Here's the distinction. Ignorance is the knowledge, or is knowledge, which is impartial, imperfect. Nescience is the absence of knowledge. But the difference being here, of course, is acknowledging we don't know, and that it's an open question, something that we're not simply resting on. I'm not content to say I don't know what's being sprayed out of that plane. That's why I never let this issue go, because I can't just stop at that question, which they've been repeating for 30 years. For 30 years, people have been saying, what are they spraying? What are they spraying? Is that a valid question if you have not made one single move towards answering it? No, it's not. Now, we're going to be continuing this conversation tomorrow and much, much more. We'll follow up on quite a few of these little side issues. The SCOTUS melting down over Trump, it's all just comedy. Biden conceding that Trump's king. Like, wouldn't he be king? I mean, if they really... Oh, and the assassination talk is 100% off the charts. The assassination talk is hyping up this thing, which, again, I'm not a doom boofer. I'm not hoping for anything bad, but I'm just reading the script. We're reading the stitches on the fastball. We're trying to figure out what the news benders are doing, and we have a pretty solid track record. In fact, the other day I was talking about how Francis Ford Coppola's new movie Megaopolis was originally shelved because it had too many connections to 9/11. He delayed it because after 9/11 it wouldn't have had the same impact because of the character of New York had changed. So his new movie, or Megaopolis, now it's been produced, and he's talking about how it always had a component of an aged Russian satellite falling to the Earth. Now, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm talking about this theme of stuff falling to the Earth. Chinese space junk, Chinese rocket. What is this? Space junk hitting houses in Florida, landing in North Carolina. And this Megaopolis comes out by a director whose movies are well represented in the realm of predictive programming, and he's talking about an aged Russian satellite. And then, a few days ago, a Russian satellite explodes into 100 pieces, and they have to shelter in place in the ISS because of the field of debris. No coincidences. The fact that he had predictive programming for 9/11 and his new one is predicting the space 9/11. Lickety Split says, I've learned so many words on this channel. Thought crimes. In fact, if you see the movie Hot Skull, you would be labeled a jabber. And people would wear earplugs around you because you might use some of these words. unapproved words. And you almost have to. We have an entire lexicon because we've had to expand our vocabulary to describe what we're seeing. Because, of course, they're not going to give you the words to describe what we're observing. And oftentimes, they will co-opt our words. Like the word psyop, they took it over. They ruined it with, that whole thing with Taylor Swift? It was a psyop. It was a psyop to destroy and diffuse the word psyop itself as anything more than now it's just meaningless. They've rendered it meaningless, but it used to mean something. Psychological operation. Now, everything's a psyop. Taylor Swift is a psyop. The Pentagon put that commercial and they said, no, Taylor Swift is not a psyop. Yep, exasperated Pentagon responds to the Taylor Swift. You need to calm down. It's not a psychological operation. They confirm she's not an asset. Now, of course, it is a psyop. The question is, what is the purpose of it? It's not just selling tickets. It might be some kind of occult, worship of some kind, idolatry, I suppose. There's all these elements, but they have diffused the meaning of that word. And hoax, they use a lot of projection. You call out hoaxes, they call you a hoaxer, which makes zero sense. But I'd like to think that what we're doing is unco-optable. They cannot co-opt it. And simply because we go too far. We're outside of their purview, outside their area of expertise, and we know too much. We do know too much, and we actually know the truth. We don't know everything, and we don't know what's behind the false explanations, but we know the truth about what media is, and we operate with that knowledge. Whereas Trutherville are just as confused as normies. It's just alt confusion. These ridiculous cloud shouters. Anyway, we're going to have debates on this stuff, so don't worry. We're not talking in circles. That we do have an objective here, and we're going to look. I'm going to put it out there in advance too. If I lose any of these debates, I will aggressively defend the other side. I will do my part. I will be your chemtrail champion. Anyway, thanks for joining. This is One-Eyed Jack in the Shells, Death to the Ball, and we'll likely be in Discord now that we're assigning mods and we're start building some content there again.
It's death to the ball. It's death to the ball. It's death to the ball. We're seeking death to the ball.